The phone call that changed everything came on a Wednesday morning while I was fixing a leak under the kitchen sink. My supervisor's voice cut straight to the point. They wanted me as drilling supervisor for their new operation in North Dakota. $210,000 a year, plus housing allowance, plus benefits that most people only dream about. I hung up and stared at that phone for a solid minute. This was it. The opportunity I'd been working toward for 8 years in this industry. Real money, real responsibility, a chance to build something that mattered. My wife was in the living room, scrolling through her phone like always. Designer coffee in hand, silk pajamas at noon on a weekday. She glanced up when I walked in. Who was that? Work. They offered me the drilling supervisor position in North Dakota. She blinked twice. North Dakota? Are you serious right now? Dead serious. It's an incredible opportunity. The pay is. I don't care what the pay is. She set her coffee down hard enough to slosh it onto the glass table. I'm not moving to some frozen wasteland so you can play around on oil rigs. Play around. That's what she called my career. 8 years of climbing my way up in one of the toughest industries in America, and she called it playing around. I won't sacrifice my lifestyle for your oil field career, she continued, her voice getting sharper. I have a life here. Friends, the yoga studio, my book club. I'm not giving that up so you can go chase some fantasy in the middle of nowhere. I looked at her sitting there in $300 pajamas, in our house that my fantasy job was paying for. The same job that funded her yoga classes and book clubs and designer coffee habits. Fair enough, I said. She stopped mid-rant. What? I said fair enough. You don't want to come, you don't have to. That wasn't the response she expected. She wanted to fight, wanted me to beg, to compromise, to choose her over my career like I'd done countless times before. Instead, I walked to the bedroom and pulled my duffel bag from the closet. What are you doing? Her voice followed me down the hall. Packing. You can't be serious. You're actually going to leave for some temporary job in North Dakota? It's not temporary. It's a career move. She appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. So that's it. You're just going to abandon our marriage for this. I'm not abandoning anything. I'm taking a job that will set us up for life. You're the one who said you won't sacrifice anything for it. Because it's ridiculous. You expect me to sit here and wait while you're off having your little adventure. Little adventure. There it was again. She had this gift for making everything I worked for sound trivial. No, I said, folding my clothes methodically. I don't expect you to wait. The room went quiet except for the sound of my zipper closing. Fine, she said, her voice ice cold. If that's how you want to play this, then I want a divorce. I looked up at her, really looked at her, standing there in her silk pajamas, perfectly manicured nails, not a care in the world except protecting her comfortable little bubble. All right, that's all you have to say. What else do you want me to say? You made your choice. Her face flushed red. My choice. You're the one walking away from everything we built together for some dirty, temporary job in the middle of nowhere. Nothing temporary about it. But you're right about one thing. I am walking away. Good, she snapped. Because I already have better plans for my future anyway. Plans that don't involve waiting around for some oil field worker to come home covered in mud. Oil field worker. Said like it was something shameful. Like the industry that built half of America was beneath her. I grabbed my laptop bag and headed for the door. I'll have a lawyer contact you about the paperwork. That's it. You're not even going to fight for us. I stopped at the front door and turned around. She was standing in the hallway now. And for the first time since this conversation started, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. There's nothing to fight for, I said. You made it clear what you think of my career, my ambitions, and my future. I'm not going to waste time trying to convince someone to see my worth when they've already decided I have none. That's not what It's exactly what you meant. I walked out and closed the door behind me. My truck was in the driveway, and I threw my bags in the back. Through the front window, I could see her watching me leave, probably expecting me to change my mind, come back, apologize for having ambitions. But I kept driving. The divorce papers arrived by email 2 days later. She'd apparently wasted no time making our split official. Fine by me. I signed them electronically and sent them back the same day. She could have the house, the furniture, most of our shared accounts. Starting over with nothing but my skills and my determination seemed like a fair trade for getting my life back. North Dakota was waiting, and so was the biggest opportunity of my career. 3 weeks later, I was standing in the middle of North Dakota watching the sun rise over drilling equipment that stretched as far as the eye could see. The housing allowance covered a decent place in town, nothing fancy, but clean and functional. Everything I needed and nothing I didn't. The work was intense. 12-hour shifts managing drilling operations, coordinating with geological teams, ensuring safety protocols were followed to the letter. Real responsibility. Real decisions that affected millions of dollars in equipment and the safety of dozens of workers. My crew respected me because I earned it. I didn't hide behind a title or delegate everything while sitting in an office. I was out there with them, solving problems, making the tough calls, getting my hands dirty when necessary. The money was everything they promised and more. After taxes and expenses, I was banking more each month than I used to make in 3 months back home. The housing allowance alone covered what most people paid in rent, and the health benefits were better than anything I'd ever had. But the best part wasn't the money. It was the respect. When I spoke, people listened. When I made a decision, it mattered. When problems came up, they came to me because they knew I'd handle it. I barely thought about my ex-wife during those first few months. Too busy building something real. Then one evening, out of curiosity more than anything else, I checked social media. I hadn't posted anything in months, but there she was all over my timeline. Photos from expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Miami, shopping sprees in downtown boutiques. The captions told the whole story, living my best life, finally free to enjoy the finer things. No compromises, no settling. She was clearly trying to prove she'd made the right choice, showing the world how much better off she was without me and my oil field adventure. What struck me most was how desperate it all looked. Every post screamed that she was trying to convince herself as much as everyone else. The comments from her friends were supportive but hollow. "You go, girl. And you deserve this," from people who probably wondered how she was affording it all. I closed the app and went back to reviewing drilling reports. Her performance for social media wasn't my concern anymore. At work, I'd started building real relationships. Not the superficial friendships she valued, but connections with people who understood what it meant to work hard for something meaningful. My assistant supervisor was a guy who'd worked his way up from roughneck to engineer. The safety coordinator was a woman who'd left corporate consulting to do something that actually mattered. These were people who got up every day and built things, who solved real problems, who didn't need to post about it online because they were too busy actually doing it. The contrast wasn't lost on me. While she was spending money trying to look successful, I was actually becoming successful. While she was posting about living her best life, I was quietly building the foundation for a future she couldn't even imagine. My phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no attempts at contact. Just the way I preferred it. The regional manager visited our site after my 3rd month. He pulled me aside after the inspection. "Impressive work out here. Production numbers are ahead of schedule, safety record is spotless, and your crew speaks highly of you. Just doing the job. It's more than that. Corporate has been watching this operation. There might be bigger opportunities coming up. You interested in staying long-term?" Long-term. The word my ex-wife had dismissed as impossible. The future she couldn't see because she was too busy protecting her comfortable present. Absolutely. Good. Keep doing what you're doing. That weekend, I allowed myself a beer on my small porch, looking out at the landscape that had become home. The work was hard, the environment was demanding, but I was exactly where I belonged. My phone buzzed with another social media notification. Another post from her, this time at some charity gala. Designer dress, professional photos, huge smile. But I noticed something in that photo that probably nobody else did. The smile didn't reach her eyes. The dress looked expensive, but not new. The event looked more like a necessity than a choice. I deleted the notification without reading the caption. Her show was becoming less convincing by the month, but that wasn't my problem to solve anymore. I had work to do tomorrow. Real work that mattered. And for the first time in years, that was enough. 6 months into my new position, I got promoted to senior drilling supervisor with a salary bump that pushed my annual income even higher. The regional manager hadn't been kidding about bigger opportunities. My housing allowance increased, and they added a vehicle stipend that covered everything from gas to maintenance. I was living comfortably on about 30% of my income and banking the rest. Real wealth building, not the fake lifestyle spending I used to watch. Meanwhile, 1,500 miles away, reality was apparently catching up with my ex-wife's grand plans. I found out through her sister, who called me completely out of the blue on a Tuesday evening. I know you two are divorced and everything, but I thought you should know she's struggling. I almost hung up right there. Not my problem anymore. But curiosity got the better of me. Struggling how? Financially. She lost her job at the marketing firm 3 months ago. Something about budget cuts. But between you and me, I think her attendance was an issue. She'd been taking a lot of time off for those weekend trips. The irony was beautiful. While I was building a career that gave me real financial freedom, she'd been burning through resources and neglecting the only income she had. The house is going into foreclosure, her sister continued. She can't make the mortgage payments. The savings from your divorce settlement, well, they're gone. Gone. 6 months of playing the successful single woman had burned through everything she demanded in the divorce. She's been asking family for loans, but nobody has that kind of money. She had to sell her car and get something used. The whole lifestyle thing, it was all on credit cards. I listened without saying much. The picture was becoming clear. While I was earning more money than I'd ever imagined, she was discovering what happens when you spend money you don't have to maintain an image that was never real. Look, I'm not asking you to help her or anything. I just thought you should know. I appreciate the call. After hanging up, I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee and processed what I'd just heard. The woman who'd called my career a temporary adventure was now facing the consequences of treating life like a permanent vacation. But the real kicker came 2 weeks later. I was having lunch with my crew when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Someone had tagged me in a professional networking post. The company had shared an article about our drilling operation success, and they'd mentioned me by name as a key leader in the project. The post included our production numbers, safety records, and a quote from corporate about the operation exceeding all expectations. It mentioned my role, my experience, and the fact that we were expanding operations under my supervision. By the time I got home that evening, the post had been shared dozens of times. People in the industry were commenting, congratulating me, sharing their own experiences. My professional network was growing, and my reputation was spreading. But buried in the comments, I spotted something that made me pause. Someone had shared the post to their personal page with the caption, "Wow, remember when this guy was just doing temporary oil field work? Look at him now." One of her friends had commented below it, "Wait, isn't this your ex-husband?" The post was public. Anyone could see it, including her. I could almost picture her reaction when she stumbled across that article, learning that while she was losing her house and maxing out credit cards, the man she dismissed was being recognized as a leader in a multi-million-dollar operation. The dirty temporary job she'd mocked was generating the kind of income she'd only pretended to have. The oil field adventure she'd ridiculed was building the exact future she'd always claimed to want. 2 days later, her sister called again. She knows. Knows what? About your job. About the money. Someone showed her that article about your company. She's been researching drilling supervisor salaries for the past week. I almost laughed. She was probably discovering that my playing around on oil rigs was paying more than her marketing job ever would have, even if she still had it. How's she taking it? Not well. She keeps saying she had no idea the oil industry paid that much, that you never told her about the real potential. But I had told her. I tried to explain the opportunity, the growth potential, the financial security. She'd chosen not to listen because it didn't fit her image of what success should look like. She's been asking questions about you, where you're living, how long the job lasts, whether you're dating anyone. And what are you telling her? The truth, that you're doing well and it's none of her business. After that call, I made a decision. I updated my own social media for the first time in months. Nothing flashy or attention-seeking, just a simple post. Grateful for the opportunities that come from hard work and taking calculated risks. I attached a photo of the sunset over our drilling site. Professional, understated, but it told the story for anyone paying attention. Within hours, the post had likes and comments from colleagues, industry contacts, and old friends. People congratulating me, sharing their own success stories, building the kind of network that creates real opportunities. But I also noticed something else. According to the app's analytics, someone had viewed my profile multiple times over the past week. Someone whose name I recognized, but who hadn't interacted with any of my content. She was watching, learning, realizing exactly what she'd walked away from. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. While she was discovering that her better plans were collapsing around her, I was building something she was finally starting to understand the value of. But understanding and deserving are two very different things. The first message arrived on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing safety protocols for the new drilling site. A simple text from a number I'd almost forgotten I still had. "Hey, just wondering how you're doing. Hope everything is going well up there." I stared at the message for about 10 seconds, then went back to my reports. Not worth the energy to respond. But she wasn't done. 3 days later, saw an article about oil industry growth. "Sounds like you were right about the opportunities. Always knew you were smart about these things." Always knew. The woman who'd called my career choice ridiculous was now claiming she'd always believed in my intelligence. The rewriting of history was almost impressive. 2 more days. Been thinking about our conversation before you left. I think I misunderstood what you were trying to tell me about the job. Misunderstood. Not that she'd been wrong, dismissive, or insulting. Just a simple misunderstanding. I deleted each message without responding. But they kept coming. "I've been reading about drilling operations. Had no idea how complex and important the work is. You must be doing really well. Ran into your old colleague from the previous company. He mentioned seeing your name in some industry publication. So proud of what you've accomplished." Proud. The woman who'd called it a dirty, temporary job was now proud of my accomplishments. The messages were coming every few days now, each one more transparent than the last. She was fishing for information, testing the waters, trying to gauge whether I might be open to communication. But the real masterpiece came 2 weeks later. I know things ended badly between us, and I take responsibility for my part in that. I've had time to think about what really matters, and I realize I may have been too focused on surface-level things instead of supporting your dreams. Would love to catch up sometime if you're open to it. I read that message 3 times. The calculated humility, the vague admission of fault without actually acknowledging what she'd done. The suggestion that her behavior was just being focused on surface-level things instead of being completely disrespectful and selfish. For a moment, I considered blocking her number and being done with it. She wasn't worth the mental energy, not worth a single minute of my time or attention. But then I started thinking about that conversation in our bedroom, how she dismissed my career as playing around, how she'd called it a dirty, temporary job, how she'd said she already had better plans for her future. The contempt in her voice when she'd called me an oil field worker, like it was something shameful. The arrogance when she'd claimed she wouldn't sacrifice her lifestyle for my career. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she deserved to learn a lesson. Not just the natural consequences of her choices, but something that would stick with her permanently. I crafted my response carefully. "Things have been busy here, but going well. Thanks for reaching out." Short, polite, distant. Not encouraging, but not completely dismissive. Just enough rope for her to hang herself with. Her response came within an hour. "That's great to hear. I'd love to know more about what you're working on. The industry seems fascinating when you really understand it." Fascinating. The same industry she'd called ridiculous was now fascinating to her. "Maybe we could grab coffee sometime when you're in town. I'd really like to hear about your experiences out there." There it was. The request for a meeting. The opening she'd been building toward with all those carefully crafted messages. I let her wait 2 days before responding. "I'll be back in town next month for some business. Could probably spare an hour for coffee." Her reply was almost instant. "That would be wonderful. Just name the time and place. Really looking forward to catching up." The eagerness was pathetic. The woman who demanded a divorce because I wouldn't abandon my career was now excited about the possibility of an hour of my time. But coffee wasn't what I had in mind. Over the next week, I started planning. Not just a meeting, but a lesson she'd never forget. Something that would show her exactly what she'd given up and ensure she never had the audacity to try this again. I researched restaurants in the area, found the perfect place, upscale enough that she'd feel compelled to dress up and make an impression, public enough that she wouldn't be able to make a scene without embarrassing herself. Then I made a call to a colleague who'd be in town the same week. A woman named Jessica who worked in geological surveys. Smart, successful, attractive, and about 5 years younger than my ex-wife. I explained the situation and asked if she'd be willing to help me send a message. She laughed when I told her the plan. "So you want me to have dinner with you while your desperate ex-wife shows up expecting a romantic reconciliation?" Something like that. Sounds like she earned it. Count me in. The pieces were falling into place. My ex-wife thought she was getting a chance to win me back. What she was actually getting was a front row seat to watch what moving on really looked like. I sent her the restaurant name and time, told her I was looking forward to our conversation. She responded with multiple excited messages about how much she'd missed talking to me and how she'd been hoping for this opportunity. The trap was set. All that was left was watching her walk into it. I chose the Sterling on 5th Street for good reason. Upscale enough to matter, visible enough to make an impact, and busy enough that what was about to happen would have an audience. The reservation was for 7:30 on a Friday evening. Prime time for the kind of crowd that would appreciate the show my ex-wife was about to provide. I arrived 15 minutes early with Jessica. She looked stunning in a navy blue dress that was both professional and elegant. The kind of woman who commanded respect in any room she entered. "You sure about this?" she asked as we were seated at a table with perfect visibility from the entrance. "She earned this lesson. Besides, you're doing her a favor. Better she learns now than continues living in fantasy land." Jessica smiled. "I have to admit, I'm curious to see how this plays out." The hostess seated us at a table where anyone entering the restaurant would see us immediately. I checked my watch. 7:20. She'd be arriving any moment, probably having spent hours getting ready for what she thought was her big reconciliation opportunity. "Tell me about this woman," Jessica said, sipping her wine. "Smart enough to know better, selfish enough not to care. She spent our entire marriage treating my career like a hobby until it started generating real money. Then suddenly she wants to be part of it. And the white dress." I'd mentioned that detail when explaining why this particular lesson mattered. "Something she wore to our wedding rehearsal dinner. She'll wear it tonight because she thinks it means something to me." "Does it?" "It used to. Now it's just fabric." At exactly 7:30, I saw her through the front windows. She'd arrived right on time, dressed in that white dress I'd predicted. Even from a distance, I could see she'd put serious effort into this. Hair professionally done, makeup perfect, jewelry that probably cost more than she could afford in her current situation. She walked into the restaurant with confidence, scanning the room for me. When her eyes found our table, the confidence evaporated instantly. I watched her face process what she was seeing. Me, sitting across from another woman. A younger, more attractive woman who was clearly comfortable and engaged in conversation with me. For a moment, she just stood there in the entrance, frozen. Other diners were starting to notice her hovering awkwardly by the hostess stand. "She's pretty," Jessica observed, following my gaze. "Also looks like she's about to have a breakdown." I could see my ex-wife's mind racing. She'd expected to find me sitting alone, probably nervous about seeing her again. Instead, she was watching me laugh at something Jessica had said while completely ignoring her presence. The hostess approached her, probably asking if she needed a table. I watched her shake her head, her eyes never leaving our table. Then she made the decision I'd been waiting for. Instead of leaving quietly, instead of accepting that she'd misread the situation, she started walking toward us. Her jaw was set, her hands clenched at her sides. She was going to confront me. "Perfect. Here she comes," I said quietly to Jessica. Should I be worried? Just enjoy the show. My ex-wife was moving with purpose now, weaving between tables with the kind of determined stride that meant she'd forgotten where she was and what kind of scene she was about to create. I could see other diners starting to notice her approach. The restaurant was busy, but not loud enough to cover whatever was about to happen. She was about 10 feet away when disaster struck. A waiter carrying a full tray of wine glasses was moving between tables in the same direction. She was so focused on reaching me that she didn't see him until it was too late. The collision was spectacular. She hit him at full speed, sending the entire tray flying. Red wine exploded across her white dress, the waiter, and the floor around them. Glass shattered. Wine splashed onto nearby tables. The entire restaurant went silent. She stood there, soaked in red wine, surrounded by broken glass and horrified diners. The white dress that was supposed to trigger my romantic memories was now stained beyond repair. But the best part wasn't the wine or the broken glass. It was her face. The complete shock and humiliation as she realized that every single person in the restaurant was staring at her. "Oh my God," Jessica whispered, trying not to laugh. I took a sip of my drink and waited. This was the moment that would define how the rest of the evening played out. My ex-wife looked around the silent restaurant, then back at me. She opened her mouth to say something, probably to demand an explanation for why I was there with another woman. But I wasn't going to let her control this narrative. I stood up slowly, making sure my voice would carry across the silent restaurant. Folks, I said, my tone casual and slightly amused. Meet my ex-wife. Still making quite an entrance wherever she goes. The silence stretched for another heartbeat. Then someone in the back of the restaurant started laughing. Then another person. Within seconds, the entire place was buzzing with conversation and barely suppressed laughter. My ex-wife's face went from shocked to mortified to completely devastated. She looked around the restaurant at all the people who were now talking about her, pointing at her, laughing at her spectacular public humiliation. Then she did exactly what I'd expected her to do. She ran, not walked quickly toward the exit, not tried to salvage any dignity. She literally ran out of the restaurant, leaving a trail of wine drops and the sound of her heels clicking frantically on the marble floor. I sat back down and continued my conversation with Jessica as if nothing had happened. Well, Jessica said, raising her glass, that was educational. For everyone involved. The waiter came over to apologize for the accident, but I could see he was trying not to smile. I left him a generous tip for being an unwitting participant in the best lesson my ex-wife had ever received. By the time we finished dinner, the story had probably spread to half the city. My ex-wife's grand attempt at reconciliation had become a cautionary tale about the dangers of trying to interrupt someone else's evening. But more importantly, she'd learned something that would stick with her forever. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt, and some lessons can only be learned in front of an audience. The restaurant returned to normal conversation within minutes, but I knew the story would live on much longer. In a city this size, word travels fast, especially when someone makes that kind of public spectacle of themselves. Jessica and I finished our dinner in peace. She was good company, intelligent, accomplished, with her own career and ambitions. The kind of woman who understood that success requires sacrifice and wasn't threatened by a partner's achievements. So what happens now? She asked as we walked to the parking lot. Now she disappears from my life permanently. You sure about that? She seemed pretty determined earlier. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. 3 missed calls and 2 text messages, all from my ex-wife. I deleted them without reading and blocked her number. She had her chance to be part of something good. She chose to throw it away. Tonight was just making sure she understands there's no going back. Jessica nodded. Harsh but fair. Some people only learn through consequences. I drove back to my hotel thinking about the look on my ex-wife's face when she realized the entire restaurant was laughing at her. Not with her, at her. The woman who'd always been so concerned about appearances had just provided entertainment for a room full of strangers. But I didn't feel guilty. She'd earned every second of that humiliation. The next morning, I was packing for my flight back to North Dakota when my phone rang. Her sister again. What the hell did you do? I had dinner. What? She came home last night hysterical, soaked in wine, crying about how you humiliated her in front of everyone. What happened? I gave her the basic facts. The restaurant, the other woman, the accident with the wine, the laughter. Jesus. She's devastated. Good. Maybe now she'll understand what it feels like to be dismissed and humiliated. That's pretty cold. No colder than telling your husband his career is worthless and demanding a divorce because he won't give up his future for your comfort. Silence on the other end. Look, I continued, she made her choices. She wanted out of our marriage, she got out. She wanted to pursue her better plans, she pursued them. She wanted to come back when things got tough. And she learned that some doors don't reopen. She says she loves you. She loves what I can provide. There's a difference. So that's it. You're just done. I was done the day she called my career a joke and walked away. Everything since then has just been her realizing what she gave up. After hanging up, I blocked her sister's number too. No more intermediaries. No more messages. No more attempts to pull me back into drama I'd already left behind. My flight back to North Dakota was peaceful. No texts, no calls, no social media notifications demanding my attention. Just silence. When I got back to the site, my crew was waiting with news. Corporate had approved the expansion project I proposed. More drilling sites, bigger budget, additional responsibility, and a promotion that came with another significant salary increase. Congratulations, boss, my assistant supervisor said, shaking my hand. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. That evening, I sat on my porch watching the sunset over the drilling equipment that had become home. In 18 months, I'd gone from a man whose wife thought his career was worthless to someone corporate trusted with multi-million-dollar operations. I thought about the white dress, probably sitting in a laundry basket somewhere, stained beyond repair. A perfect metaphor for our marriage, something that might have been beautiful once, but was ultimately ruined by poor decisions and worse timing. My phone buzzed with a notification, a LinkedIn connection request from a company in Texas, asking if I'd be interested in discussing an even bigger opportunity. The kind of opportunity that comes to people who've proven themselves capable of handling pressure and delivering results. I accepted the connection and made a note to call them next week. The future was wide open, full of possibilities that came from making hard choices and sticking with them. 3 months later, I heard through industry contacts that my ex-wife had moved back in with her parents. The house had been foreclosed, the credit cards maxed out, the lifestyle she'd tried to maintain completely collapsed. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy, no regret. She was simply irrelevant to my life now. 6 months after that, I took the job in Texas. Regional Director of Operations, overseeing drilling sites across 3 states. The kind of position that comes with real authority, real responsibility, and the kind of income that builds generational wealth. I never heard from her again. Never saw her on social media. Never got updates from mutual friends. She'd learned her lesson and apparently learned it well. As I write this, I'm looking out at the Texas landscape from my new office. The company car in the parking lot. The team of engineers and supervisors who respect my decisions. The bank account that grows every month. Sometimes people ask if I ever regret how things ended. If I think I was too harsh, too unforgiving. The answer is simple. I don't regret removing people from my life who don't value what I bring to it. I don't regret refusing to reward bad behavior with second chances. And I definitely don't regret choosing my future over someone else's comfort. She wanted a man who would sacrifice his ambitions for her lifestyle. Instead, she got a lesson about what happens when you underestimate someone's worth. The lesson stuck, and my life got immeasurably better without her in it. Some endings are permanent. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. And sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is let them live with the consequences of their choices. She made hers. I made mine. The difference is, I can live with mine.